Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Senator Udall. This is a great pleasure to be here and an honor to be with this distinguished panel. This is a very interesting question, 3 things I would change about higher education. First, let me set the context for the things I would want to see done differently, and that is the overarching challenge that President Obama has laid out for the country to become, by the year 2020, the most educated nation in the world once again. And this is, as Secretary Duncan often says, this is the North Star of the Department of Education, and it helps guide and prioritize everything that we do in the department. So, but getting to his question, I think that there's 3 things that I would, if I could wave a magic wand, I would change about higher education. One of them is the one that I came to Washington very preoccupied about 2 years ago as the California budget was imploding, and has continued to do so. Noticing the discrepancy between the 2020 goal and the need to expand capacity in the higher education system on the one hand, and the fact that states were being severely constrained and many, including California, forced to cut back on their support for public higher education. So the first thing I would change is I would like to see a cultural transformation in our campuses where, in addition to all of the great things that presidents do to try to improve business practices and trim costs around the edges of the core mission of teaching and learning, I would like to see a cultural transformation in that core part of the institution where our innovative and creative and ingenious faculty include as part of their objective function, if you will, improving the efficiency of teaching and learning itself. There are some very interesting developments going on right now, advances in cognitive science and in brain research that have the potential for us to apply the results of science in a systematic way to continually re-engineer and reinvent how we do teaching and learning and start a virtuous circle of productivity improvement in that core activity. If that happened, then we could, in this kind of ideal world, we would see annual increases in productivity and in efficiency that would allow us to actually lower the cost of higher education on an ongoing basis, much like it happens in other dynamic industries where information technology as well as scientific advances are helping us to do that. So that's the one big, thing I would change. The other one, I think, would be to recognize that we are, again, impacted by the revolution in information technology. And let me just dwell on that for a second. The fundamental underlying change here is the fact that the cost of accumulating, gathering, interpreting, and disseminating information has plummeted as a result of the information technology revolution. And that really changes everything. It has the potential, it's forcing in certain industries this, and in others it raises the potential to completely re-envision how we do things. Because basically, just to look at higher education, or education in general, the way that we have traditionally organized ourselves is predicated on the assumption that information is difficult to gather, costly to gather, and accumulate painstakingly over time, and that you need to have content matter experts who do this work and then disseminate it in a sort of one-to-one basis or in a face-to-face basis to others. And that's really not there anymore. That's changed dramatically. And so we're seeing that, in fact, content now is becoming cheaper to access and freely accessible. The developments that MIT and other institutions are undergoing and putting on their lectures online, their content online, really raises questions about the fundamental economics of higher education and how we could do things differently to really take advantage of that. So I see the role of faculty changing dramatically from away from being the main disseminators of content information to being more coaches and mentors to students. And so I think the second change I would see as a result would be a focus on a changed focus on higher education, on preparing students for the 21st century society, to focus on 21st century skills and competencies. Certainly, knowledge of content, but even more importantly, awareness of where content is, how to get it, and how to judge it, and how to utilize it is what's really needed. So a focus on 21st century skills for our students, and of course, presume and underline that as completion. So they have to complete, but what is it they're completing? What does their degree stand for? That's the change that we need to have. And the last one, I think, to take up one of the themes that was that I understand is important to Senator Udall, and it certainly is to us in the Department of Education, is a renewed focus on a very old and original foundational role for education and for higher education as well in ensuring the health of our democracy and the vitality of our civic space. And in fact, the department, and this is, I'm not just saying that because the senator thinks it's important, but it really is something that we have been quite concerned about. My boss, Martha Cantor, the undersecretary, in fact, was so concerned about this that when she came in, she commissioned a study that was essentially carried out by the American Association of Colleges and Universities to really find out what everybody was doing around the country and what things needed to be done better, and how we can sort of rededicate ourselves to this very core role of higher education. And so they came out with a report called A Crucible Moment, College Learning and Democracy's Future, that I recommend to you. And in response to this is basically a year's worth of work by AAC&U talking to a lot of people, a lot of the stakeholders across the country about this issue. And then in response to that report, we in the department put out another document called Advancing Civic Learning and Engagement and Democracy, a roadmap and call to action, where we basically identify what we think needs to happen by the various stakeholders, including the federal government. So both of these publications are available in the website for the department at www.ed.gov. And if you just basically put on the search box civic learning, and you'll get a page where you'll have both of these publications in PDF format downloadable for you to have. So I'll stop here and turn it over